Hey, everybody. What's up? Welcome to a Moment of Clarity. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Glad you guys are here. Please take a second to share this and click subscribe and click the thumbs up and all that stuff. So this is about the Pentagon, and it's an NPR article. Now, NPR, you should know in advance, NPR, National Petroleum Radio, as Greg Palast likes to call them. They are, just because I'm going to read from an NPR article, do not think that NPR is good on many of these topics. NPR is a lot of the time a full-on supporter of the U.S. state, the U.S. war machine. They help manufacture consent for these wars, manufacture consent for economic wars against places like China. They spew out all the garbage that of stories that are ultimately proven false, like Russiagate, like chemical weapons in Syria, like the genocide against the Uyghurs, which I've spent some time in previous episodes tearing that garbage apart. So they do all of that. So just because I'm about to do some quoting from NPR, don't run around thinking NPR is a legitimate source. I have learned great things from National Public Radio, and they sent me a tote bag, and tote bags can't be wrong. Never once has a tote bag lied to me. Never the once. So this is and I'm going to point out some of the kind of propaganda in this as well, but at least the basis of the story is true. This is about the Pentagon. The Pentagon was required, hold on a second. The Pentagon was required to have their first ever audit. They were supposed to start auditing themselves in the 90s. A bill was passed by Congress. And the Pentagon would come back every year and go, we're going to get on that. We've been meaning to, the audit. We've been meaning to do that. We're going to get on that. We just give us one more year. So they did that every year until finally in 2017, there was enough pressure on them that they actually had an audit of the Pentagon. Oh my God, people were running around. It's happening. It's really happening. Ron Paul was, he had like a seizure and erection at the same time. People were thrilled. Oh my God, it's really happening. We're going to have an audit of the Pentagon. We're going to find out where that fucking money's going. So, as I've also covered many times, the Pentagon has been shown to have $21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments in their books. And that was just up through, I think, 2015, to like 2005 to 2015. Remember, it was 2000 to 2015. Anyway, it might have been 15 years, something like 15 years. But anyway, $21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments, meaning they're throwing money back and forth between departments. No one really knows where this is going. It's not a legitimate correction. You don't know where. And the New York Times tried to defend this by saying, well, generals aren't good at bookkeeping. That's what it is. Yeah, $21 trillion is such an immense amount of money. It's not about little errors, okay? This is about design. It is designed this way to have trillions of dollars of unaccounted for money just fucking flying around these various departments of the Defense Department, of the Pentagon. Really shouldn't call them the Defense Department because defense is not a thing. We don't do defense. When was the last time we defended ourselves, huh? When exactly was that? Maybe World War II? Arguably. We don't do defense. So our offense department, our obliterate others department. So the Pentagon, $21 trillion. There's now new articles saying it's upwards of $35 trillion unaccounted for adjustments. So this is NPR the other day. The Pentagon has never passed an audit. Some senators want to change that. So they are putting forward a bill. Well, I'll just read through some of it. When the Pentagon launched its first ever independent financial audit back in 2017, backers of accountability in government welcomed it as a major step for a department with a track record of financial boondoggles. So you can already see the propaganda at work, right? Because the words they're using sounds like, it's kind of fun, right? It's financial boondoggles. Who knows? It's even if it doesn't sound fun, I'm exaggerating, but it sounds silly, right? It sounds, I ended up in a financial boondoggle. Like if you found out that you had accidentally spent all your money on meth and also that you were being investigated for buying thousands of dollars of meth, and you were telling your friends about that, would you go, I'm in a bit of a financial boondoggle, a bit of a pickle? No, you'd go, holy shit, Jesus Christ, man, I'm fucked. And that's what this should be, because it's not a financial boondoggle, all right? This is the Defense Department, the Pentagon, spending trillions of dollars on various weapons, $1 trillion on the F-35 alone, which has turned out to be a disaster. The F-35 fighter jet that catches on fire while it's sitting on the runway, which that was not part of they were not planning on that. It's not like there's a button that says, catch on fire. That was not part of the schematics. Point to the part of the schematics where it says just have a light on fire switch. We did not order that. So F-35, piece of garbage, $1 trillion. Anyway, that's the type of thing. This is trillions of dollars disappearing to murder people around the world. That's what it is. So it's not a financial boondoggle, motherfuckers. Anyway, I also love the kind of euphemism of accountability in government. Backers of accountability in government. That sounds kind of nice, doesn't it? It's kind of gentlemanly. Oh, we're looking for some accountability in government. These are sociopaths, some of them psychopaths, but mainly sociopaths, spending and making trillions of dollars to murder people around the world. And we're looking for a bit of accountability, imagine if you had a person in your neighbor, like an axe murderer, was just fucking killing everyone, just hatcheting children in the streets. And you walked out to him and you were like, hey, dude, I'm looking for a little financial accountability. I'm looking for a little you accountability on could you just tell me like how much does a hatchet cost? Because I've been looking at your books and I don't know how much you're spending on hatchets. I don't know how much you're spending on bleach to get that blood out of your shirt. That's a very nice shirt. It's a very nice shirt. I don't know how you get the blood out. And in fact, just for my own personal use, I'd like to know how you get those stains out, because I nick myself shaving, ruins the shirt. But somehow you are doing great here. So, but I've checked your books and I'm looking for a little financial accountability. That's basically what this article is. We're literally currently bombing children and helping Israel bomb children. And meanwhile, NPR is like, and our government, the people bringing this bill forward are going, we'd like a little financial accountability just on the hatchet. Just tell us where you get the hatchets. So they had their first audit back in 2017. The Defense Department failed the audit, and the next two as well. And I hadn't even realized that part, by the way. Every once in a while, even I learned something on this topic where I thought I'd read everything on this topic. They've had 3 of these audits, and every one of them, they've come out literally like the fucking head of the Defense Department, Secretary of Defense, walks out and goes, here, we found the answer to the audit, and Ron Paul gets the erection again, and everybody's like, holy shit, it's happening. And then he goes, we failed the audit. And then he turns around and walks back into his cave and, goes back to gnawing on a fucking polar bear carcass or whatever he's doing. So each time, there's been 3 of these things. They just go, oh, we failed it. We didn't know. We don't know where it went, where the money went. Now lawmakers are introducing a bipartisan bill that would impose a penalty for any part of the department, including the military, that fails to undergo a clean audit. And this is when it gets really good. This is a quote from Bernie Sanders, I guess. The Pentagon and the military industrial complex have been plagued by a massive amount of waste, fraud, and financial mismanagement for decades. That is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you, Bernie. Believe it or not, that as kind of light as even that is, he's not talking about them as murderers, so it's kind of a light statement. But for our Congress people, that is the harshest you will ever hear. This is unacceptable. I dare say this is unacceptable. That is the best you'll get. So To continue from the article, despite having trillions of dollars in asset and receiving hundreds of billions in federal dollars annually, it's actually closer to a trillion annually, the department has never detailed its assets and liabilities in a given year. I love they said that as if they had covered their assets and liabilities in years in general. They said in a given year. No, they've never explained their assets or liabilities fucking ever in any way. They just keep saying they fail audits. For the past 3 financial years, the Defense Department's audit has resulted in a disclaimer of opinion. Boy, doesn't that sound nice. A disclaimer of opinion, meaning the auditor didn't get enough accounting records to form an assessment. I mean, let's call this what it is. It's fucking fraud. That's fraud, you assholes. That is, if the IRS came to me and said, show us what's going on with your money, where it's going, where it's, where it's not going, what you're doing with it. And I just said, I have a disclaimer of opinion. That's all I got for you. Yeah. But tell us where all your money, what do you do with it? Where does it, because it looks like you've been muling a bunch of drugs in your rectum across the border, but we want to look at your tax records, not your tax records. We're the IRS. We want to look at your financial statements and see if that's true. And I was just like, I have a disclaimer of opinion. Yeah, here it is. Here, I've written opinion on this piece of paper. I hope you don't mind. I ripped it out of a book I was reading, but it was a comic book. But I wrote opinion on it. And so that's my disclaimer of opinion. This is fucking fraud. Just call it fraud, you fucking assholes. The new legislation, disclaimer of opinion, meaning the auditor didn't get enough accounting records to form an assessment. Do you think? So, I mean, how is this at all ever allowed? The auditors go into the Pentagon and they say, we're here to find out where the money's going, where trillions of dollars going. And the Pentagon goes, yeah, we're not going to give you the records. And then the auditors go, we couldn't figure it out. Because they refused to give us any records. How is that? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's move on with our lives. I mean, what this really is that our military industrial complex owns our government. So they're at no risk of, they can just say, we don't know where the money's going. Good luck with that. We're not going to give you any records. And there's nothing that we can do about it because the military industrial complex owns our government. They are our government. They run our foreign policy. As I've covered before, I don't love Donald Trump, but when Donald Trump tried to pull troops out of various nations or tried to create peace with North Korea, it didn't happen. And that was because the military industrial complex said, we make those decisions. You do not make those decisions. So really, they own our government. Why do they? Fucking no one's going to tell them where. Who's going to make them reveal where the money's going? The new legislation. The Audit the Pentagon Act of 2021. You know why else is ridiculous? Is because it's like, we're going to do it again. That'll fix this. You see, they already did this. They fucking put a bill was passed in Congress in the 90s that said the Pentagon had to audit, had to be audited. Said that they had to have financial accountability. And they didn't listen to it for years. And then there was more pressure. And I think there was another bill that said, no, you really got to do it this time. So they did it. And then the auditors said, yeah, we couldn't find any information. And the Pentagon said, we failed our audit. And so now Congress is just doing the same thing again. They're just like, I'll tell you what, we're going to pass another bill. Says the same thing as the first one. Remember that time we told you had to audit yourselves and you said you would and you didn't? We didn't like that. And so we're going to pass another bill. Says the same thing as first. But this one, we really mean it. We're going to write at the bottom, we really mean it, in big letters this time. It's called the We Really Mean It Act. This time around, you do not do this. I'm talking to you, Pentagon. You do not tell us that you have no papers and that you won't do an audit and that you just made $1 trillion disappear and that you happen to have just bought your third beach house. You do not do that. Bad Pentagon. This is the bad Pentagon act. I mean, what the fuck's going to be different with the second bill or third or whatever number this is saying the Pentagon's got to tell us where the money's going? Oh, but this gets to my favorite part in a second. The new legislation, the Audit the Pentagon Act of 2021, would require any component of the Defense Department that fails to pass a clean audit to forfeit 1% of its budget back to the Treasury to be applied against the federal deficit. The bill is slated to be introduced Wednesday. 1%. If you fail an audit, if you fail to tell us where the money's going, you owe us 1% of your budget. That's it. Like, we're taking $1 trillion every year and we're making it disappear. Some of it we actually spend on the bases or whatever. Who knows where the fuck the rest goes? There's articles that I've covered a lot of 13, in The Guardian even, $13 billion of printed cash, pallets of shrink-wrapped cash went missing in Iraq. Like flown, we're not talking about numbers on a computer screen. We're talking about pallets, tons of pallets of cash flown into Iraq and then just disappears. No one knows where it went. $13 billion, or maybe it was $12 billion. What's a billion between friends? And so they just make it disappear. And so then they, well, we made $1 trillion disappear, and we have $21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments, but you want us to pay you 1%? Okay, that's adorable. Here you go. You take your 1%. You enjoy that. Don't spend it all in one place. You enjoy that. That's fucking, it's literally a parking ticket. Just about literally a parking ticket. Like, here you go, Pentagon. Pay us a drop in your bucket of fucking garbage, murderous mayhem because it's actually almost encouraging more fraud. Because it's saying, before we never announced what the punishment was. So you could have in your mind been like, what if Congress gets fed up and they decide to slash our budget by like 50% or something crazy? Like you could, or what if one person, out of each department, the person is supposed to watch the financial records, what if they have to go to jail? Like you could invent crazy, like the Pentagon could have been nervous. What if it comes out that we're literally just making all this money disappear? Like, but now they know what the punishment is for not turning over the records, for not being correctly audited, for not revealing where the money goes. The punishment is a parking ticket. So now that they know that, they don't have to worry about, oh God, could we go to jail for this? No. We're announcing in the bill that the punishment for not telling us where all this shit is going, what it's going to, who's stealing it, the punishment is 1% of your budget. It honestly, this bill basically, in a lot of ways, encourages more fraud. It encourages keep operating the same way they are. In the lawmakers' eyes, the Pentagon's inability to go through a successful independent audit is a major reason why the Defense Department has for years been associated with financial blunders and abuses. Boondoggles, shenanigans, whippity whoopsies. Honestly, they make stealing money, committing fraud, using that money to bomb children. They make it sound pretty fun. Okay, it's just a bunch of boondoggles and shenanigans, and honestly, you half expect to hear the Benny Hill song behind the back of this. Blunders and abuses. Oh, blunder. It sounds like they slipped on a banana peel, doesn't it? Oops, I slipped on a pack of saran-wrapped $1 billion. Oops. The Pentagon is expected to receive $740 billion in the current financial years, but that's not accounting black budget, so it's actually closer to $1 trillion. but it hasn't been able to account for where all of its money goes. And by the way, NPR, although they are covering this, will not mention the 21 trillion of unaccounted for adjustments, or it's possibly 35 trillion now. They wouldn't get into that. Quote, it's absolutely insane, and I think it would shock a lot of people. A senior aide to Sanders said in a background interview that was conducted shortly before the legislation was formally introduced. The aide spoke only on background to provide details about pending legislation. Okay, this is another garbage thing they do. Really, dude? Your source for promoting a bill by Bernie Sanders to audit the Pentagon has to be on deep background? Fuck you. This is what our garbage mainstream media has become. They are endlessly promoting anonymous sources as if we should all just believe them. And in this case, you can believe them because it's not that big a deal, but that almost makes my point even more. Why is this guy on deep background? Our mainstream media goes to the CIA, the intelligence community, the Pentagon, everybody in Congress, and they quote them all as anonymous sources so that no one can ever check, no one can ever know whether this is legit. They have no risk of lying to the press, which we've seen again and again and again. And I just did a segment on how it's, this is how you have the media independently confirming false stories that are later retracted as false, yet they've independently confirmed them by going to the same anonymous sources at the CIA who made up the story in the first place, and they independently confirm it with the same fucking dude. But of course, they don't tell us the name of that person, so we can't go, hey, that's the same guy that made up this shit in the first place. Anyway, that's just a side note. Fuck all this anonymous sourcing garbage. The Pentagon blames some of the delay on its massive size. Yes. Anything large is impossible to audit. You guys should know that. So, any of these companies, Amazon, Walmart, none of them should ever be audited because apparently it's hard. I don't want to. Pentagon blames some of the delay on its massive size. Its auditing process actually requires 24 standalone audits covering all the reporting entities. So here's the thing, though. When they say that actually makes it much less large, right? These are 24 different departments, each one of them standalone. So you just said it was too big, but now you've just admitted that it's divvied up into 24 departments, so it's not as big. So don't tell us it's too fucking big when in fact you've got 24 departments that are much smaller. Those are two sentences back to back, and they negate each other. Oh, the Pentagon is just too big. Also, these are 24 standalone, much smaller departments. Well, which is it? Is it too big, or is it 24 standalone, much smaller departments? It's both those things. Both those things. All of the things that make you go away and stop asking me questions. All of those things are true. Anything that makes you shut up is true. My boss just told me. So 24 standalone audits covering all the reporting entities in the DoD, along with a consolidated audit. The audits are performed by independent public accounting firms as well as the DoD Inspector General. By the way, fun fact, DoD Inspector General, I covered this on Redacted a while back, Department of Defense Inspector General has gotten roughly 100,000 whistleblower calls. It was like 99,000 whistleblower calls over a few years. People putting in complaints. Now that includes financial shit, it includes sexual harassment, it includes reprisals against people that revealed things. 100,000 various complaints on the Defense Department, various departments. Almost all of them, less than 1%, I think it might have been less than 0.1%, are even investigated. So almost all of them are thrown out. 100,000 over a few years. Whistleblower complaints, all thrown out. You know how every time that people talk about Edward Snowden or something, or Chelsea Manning, they say, why didn't they go through the proper channels? They should have gone through the proper channels to complain about stuff that was going wrong. Proper channels. You got to go through the channels that are the best proper channels. Well, little did you notice in those reports, they don't mention that 100,000 people tried to go through the proper channels. They submitted to the Inspector General, and the Inspector General didn't even investigate almost any of them. They just threw them out at face value. So there you have it. The proper channels are fucking garbage. That's why people don't go through the proper channels, you idiots. But critics note that all federal agencies, including the Pentagon, have been under the same requirement to undergo an independent financial audit since the early 1990s. Every other federal department has satisfied audit requirements since fiscal 2013, when the Department of Homeland Security had its first clean audit. Quote, we've seen example after example of excessive and inefficient spending. Yes, that's all it is, inefficient. It's not deep and impressive fraud. It's just inefficient. We've seen example after example of excessive and inefficient spending by the Pentagon, and every dollar squandered is a dollar not being used to support our men and women in uniform, Grassley said. After 30 years to get ready, this bill pushes the Defense Department to finally achieve a clean annual audit, a requirement that every other federal agency is held to. Yes, after 30 years, this bill pushes them to finally achieve a clean audit, or we will take 1% of your budget from you. That's right. If you don't do this, we will take a couple of pennies out of your pocket. You empty your pockets. We're taking it all. Empty your pockets. Whatever change you got. No, not dollar bills, just change. Whatever nickels and dimes you have, throw those our way. That's your punishment for not doing a proper audit. So yeah, I think I've made it clear that I have no hope for this bill to actually do anything. So there's that. But, let's just keep passing the same bill, saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm sure eventually the Pentagon will feel bad for us. They'll feel bad that Congress has to keep passing these bills, and they'll ultimately go, you know what? Let's do a legit audit just because we've been quite rude to them. I feel bad. They're trying so hard out there. Quote, this is the senior aide to Sanders that won't reveal his name again, his or her name. Quote, right now, the Pentagon can't even tell you where all of its buildings are located in the United States. That's not a lie. That is true. The Pentagon, and I covered this on Redacted a while back, the Pentagon has found numerous buildings that it didn't realize it had in recent years. They just discovered that they own buildings. They lost buildings. That's how big the Pentagon's couch cushions are. They lost buildings down the cracks of their couch cushions. They also lost, I think it was 39 Black Hawk helicopters that they found again later. Really, the only reason they know that they lost them is because they find these things. So how many things have they lost, but they don't know they've lost them? Probably far more. These are the ones they found, and when they found them, they were walking along and they were ran smack dab into a building, and they're like, when did that get there? And they're like, oh, that's ours. That's one of ours. Oh, that's totally one of ours. Oh my God. I didn't realize we put this here. Did you put it? I didn't realize. Yeah. Now that I see it, I remember having this building. I remember there was a time we built this building, but I totally forgot where we put it. I misplaced it, because you know what it is? I used to keep this building with my car keys, but then I decided I'm going to carry it separately in a separate pocket. And the moment, because then I remember the car keys and I think, oh, the building's with the car keys, but then I forget the building. And so anyway, it's good. It's good. I'm glad we have this here. This is excellent that we now have this building here. It's good. It's good. Have you seen those Black Hawk helicopters? And I roughly 39, 40 I've been looking for. Because I used to keep those with my cell phone. All right. Anyway, a failed audit from one recent year, quote, uncovered a warehouse full of aircraft parts for planes that haven't been used in over a decade. And then there's the F-35, the notoriously expensive and controversial Joint Strike Fighter jet. Despite costing more than $1.7 trillion, I'm sorry, I shot low. It's closer to $2 trillion. I said $1 trillion earlier. I said the $1 trillion F-35. I meant the 1.7, almost $2 trillion F-35, which just, I like to throw this out there just so you can try and process it. If you make $40,000 a year, it would take you 25 million years to make $1 trillion. To make $1 trillion, 1.7 trillion, it'd take you longer. Not good with the maths. Despite costing more than $1.7 trillion in an estimated life cycle, attempts to audit the program have run into major hurdles. All right. So they can't even audit one program, one little program. It is the Pentagon is a giant money laundering scheme, not to mention mass murder, but also money laundering. They can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can murder and steal at the same time. That's what it is. It is a giant mass murder machine, and then they're, secondary. It's kind of like when you go in like a shoe store and they have a little thing at the cash register like with candy in it. And you're like, well, I was just here for the shoes, but I might as well grab a Kit Kat while I'm standing here. That's what the little thing of candy, that's the theft. That's the money laundering. The shoe store part of the Pentagon is murdering people and making sure the United States can keep crushing countries and stealing resources. But then the little thing at the cash register, kind of a side business they got going, is money laundering, so they can just keep stealing it and enriching all of the oligarchy, which was already rich, but they never think they're rich enough, so they keep stealing more and more money. All right, guys, I think that might be it. Let's read the last paragraph. Let's see how NPR sums it up. As for when or if it might become law, the bill's future most likely lies in being included in the next National Defense Authorization Act, which is expected to be taken up this fall. So, if they squeeze it in to the NDAA, which shouldn't exist in the first place, if they squeeze it into that, then it might pass. Then the Pentagon can start ignoring that bill, because so far they've only ignored a few others, and it'd be nice to ignore one more. So they can start ignoring that one soon. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Please take a second to share this. If you donated, all the donations go to people who are struggling, those in need. We try and help you out. A little solidarity fund. We are, I believe, the only independent media live stream that actually tries to fund our viewers who are struggling. I think that's fairly original to us. So please, thanks for helping out. You can, even if you're not watching this live, you can always donate on Venmo at Lee Camp. And we have a live stream where we get more into explaining the donations and everything. That's on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. this Sunday, I believe we're doing, 8 p.m. Eastern. Put it on your calendar. Put it right now on your calendar. Put a little scratch and sniff sticker next to it so you remember. And then you can scratch it and smell. If you have one that smells like me, which that's not going to be pleasant, but it'll remind you. It won't be enjoyable, but you'll remember. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Sunday night with Eleanor Goldfield. But I also have a new Redacted Tonight coming out tomorrow night. I have a new Government Secrets with Graham Elwood. You should and here's the thing, if you like what I do, you should check out Government Secrets, and you can listen to back episodes because it's pretty evergreen. We're covering the ongoing government secrets that go back generations in the United States. So very evergreen, always good episodes there. That's on the podcast platforms. You can grab that, listen for free. And keep fighting, I think. Yeah. Why don't you do that? Keep fighting.